Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm doing something a little bit different. I'll be sharing my thoughts on the online survival video game Dead by Daylight. Dead by Daylight was first released in the summer of 2016 on PC and was then transferred over to the Xbox and PlayStation consoles the following year. Since then, it has also been released for the Nintendo Switch. Since the game's original release, players have seen an influx of new content, not only including some of the developers' original ideas, like the Trapper, the Hag and the Plague, but also some of horror's most loved icons, like, for example, Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger and Leatherface. This year, 2019, the game celebrated its 3-year anniversary, but those behind the scenes clearly are not showing any signs of slowing down, as they continue to release new content for the game roughly every 3 months and release new patches frequently too. I've been playing this game pretty much non-stop for over a year now and really enjoy it. But does that mean that this game is flawless? Of course not. So today I'm going to share with you the good and the bad of Dead by Daylight. Firstly, the game has no doubt proved incredibly popular and has a strong hardcore fanbase behind it. It's also been great to see the game go from strength to strength over time too. Typically, with each and every patch, the developers' behaviour have attempted to fix issues within the game and release new content to help keep the game exciting for players. The game is simple. A group of 4 survivors attempt to survive against one killer by fixing generators and avoiding the killer at all costs. I won't talk too much about the ins and outs of how the game works, because I'm hoping that some of you may pick this up if you haven't already. Let's begin with the basic plot of the game, which I personally find to be not only unique but interesting. An unknown being by the name of the Entity rules the Dead by Daylight universe, and in order to keep alive, the Entity requires sacrifices, which is where the killers come in. In many, if not all cases, the killers have been forced into the Entity's universe unwillingly in order to complete the Entity's bidding. The plot of the game is well worth a read into, as each and every character has their own backstory and reasoning for being a part of the Entity's business. For example, the Wraith, whose actual name is Philip Ajomo, he was someone who wanted nothing more than a new beginning with his life, and would make ends meet by working in the local scrapyard named Auto Haven Wreckers. One day, Ajomo discovered that his boss had been murdering people by trapping them within the car crusher. Angered and disgusted by this discovery, Philip, quote, threw his boss in the crusher and let it slowly compress, end quote. After that, he was brought to the fog by the Entity and was never ever seen again. The Wraith is an example of one of the killers whose minds have been completely brainwashed by the Entity. The Wraith clearly doesn't want to murder people, but after one moment of madness in his life, he now has to. But that is of course just one story out of the many characters within the Dead by Daylight universe. A good thing about the plot of the game also is that it can very easily be adapted into several characters' backstories. Now let's go into the graphics of Dead by Daylight. I must admit that even prior to playing this game for the very first time, I loved the look of it. I think the game is nice to look at, even with the dark and draining colours commonly associated with a game of this genre. During the matches, or trials as they are known within the Dead by Daylight universe, I find myself simply looking around and taking in some of the sights. The majority of the maps, although there are some repetitions, feel and look different, and the characters are pleasing to look at as well. There are some issues that I have with the animations of the characters when they do certain actions. For example, I personally don't like the lack of emotion on survivors' faces whilst trying to escape the grasp of the killer, or when struggling on a hook. I also don't like the healing animation for survivors. And let's not forget that often characters will clip through each other or themselves. However, these are all minor complaints that are not damaging to the game in any way, and I'm sure over time will get fixed. The music is something that I found to be very pleasant within the game. It's one of those tunes that will very easily get stuck into your head, and it's very easily recognised as Dead by Daylight's theme. It's a very simple tune, however very effective. I enjoy how the theme changes ever so slightly depending on if you're playing as killer or survivor, and even different killers have their own versions of the main theme song. You could ask why I would enjoy a game like Dead by Daylight, which could come across as quite repetitive. The answer to that is, although the goals for killers and survivors are the same each time you enter into a match, the outcome of it can change dramatically depending on your killer, your fellow survivors, and what offerings and perks you and everyone else has activated. You could have a relatively trouble-free game, which results in you not seeing the killer very often, if at all, but you may not necessarily survive that match. Likewise, you could be non-stop chased by the killer all trial, be on the brink of death, yet somehow survive the match. You can also partake in optional daily rituals, which gives players a focus on a goal, or you can simply play entirely for fun. It's completely up to you. A positive for the match is that none of the survivors know who the killer is until the trial has started, but the killer knows who the survivors are from the second they enter the lobby. This gives the sense that the killer is in control and can contribute to tension for the survivors at the very start of each match. Because each killer has a very different feel and has different perks and powers, survivors often don't know how to go about tackling the trial until they know for sure who the killer is. For example, if survivors are going up against stealthy killers like Michael Myers, they need to navigate the map in a more stealthy way and be more alert than usual. This is because stealthier killers like Michael Myers often do not have a terror radius, which is a mechanic within the game that survivors have so that they know how close the killer is throughout the trials. If someone like the hillbilly is the killer though, survivors need to be able to react quickly, as the hillbilly has great map control and can very easily get from one side of the map to the other in a matter of seconds. One of the things about Dead by Daylight I'm not too sure of is that it's often described as a horror game. To me, although there are times the game can be creepy or intense, I don't think it's horror. I just personally don't find this game scary, but that is just a minor thing to pick at. My biggest complaint so far with this game is by far the lag. I'm not too sure if it's just my old PlayStation 4 or whether there are many other players having this problem, but the lag at times can severely affect gameplay. Whether that be me trying to hit skill checks whilst fixing generators or healing a fellow teammate, to trying to outrun the killer, or even just trying to load up the game, the lag is beginning to be a little bit of an issue for me. But again, the lag I'm experiencing may only be because I need to upgrade my console. Moving on to gameplay. The game doesn't overcomplicate controls and isn't anything new to those who play a lot of video games. However, the game just never runs smoothly for me. It always either lags out or the graphics don't load in right. I can't wait to upgrade my PlayStation because I think that will help at least a little bit with these issues. But at times, although simple, the controls and gameplay can feel a little bit clunky and awkward. Like on the PlayStation, you have to rapidly and repeatedly press X to struggle on the hook, and after doing this for quite a while it can hurt your hand a little bit. But again, this I feel is a minor issue that doesn't affect things too much. Another thing to mention about gameplay is the ranking system. There are separate ranks for both killers and survivors, and the lower the rank you are, the better you are at the game basically. What is supposed to happen is the game shouldn't put you in any lobbies that are more than 5 ranks above or below you. So for example, if you are a rank 10, you shouldn't be playing with anyone who is lower than a rank 5 or higher than a rank 15. But a lot of the time this doesn't happen. After every month, the season ends and everyone's rank resets, which could mean that you will naturally be up against someone who is more experienced and better at the game than you, leaving you at a possible disadvantage. Personally, I'm not a massive fan of this ranking system, but I understand in a way why they've done it. It's important to mention that although this is absolutely nothing to do with the developers or the game, it is a little infuriating when a killer rage quits a trial and all other players are left with no rewards at all for the trial, especially if the killer rage quits nearer to the end of the match. After all, the killers always host these lobbies, so they are in complete control when it comes to things like that. It also works in a similar way when a survivor disconnects and abandons the team. Although the game won't end because a survivor has left, the game is still impacted because their fellow survivors are now at an even bigger disadvantage. This isn't something that is the developer's fault, as I've said, but it's worth a mention that things like this will happen to you whilst playing Dead by Daylight. Overall, if you played this game back when it was first released and have since abandoned it, I would suggest picking it back up and giving it a second chance. After all, the game has changed quite a lot since 2016. And I would also still recommend this game to you if you've never played it before, especially if you can get it whilst it's on deal, maybe discounted in PlayStation Plus, or there's just some kind of sale on the PlayStation Store or something like that. But I would still recommend this game. The game developers have insisted that 2020 will be the year they begin to focus on the longevity of Dead by Daylight by mainly fixing some major mechanical issues that the game has. Behaviour have recently also added some new mechanics into the game, such as the archives. This prevents the game from feeling stale and again gives players the opportunity to learn more about the backstory, whilst at the same time giving them challenges and things to focus on. It's obvious that those behind the scenes want the game to continue to be successful and are wanting the game to be better. And on top of that, it's easy to see that a lot of love and thought has been put into the game by the team. I would personally rate Dead by Daylight an 8 out of 10 because yeah, it has its issues, but I feel like those at Behaviour are actively trying to improve this game. I think that the game will continue to be popular for a long time, especially since new content is constantly being released for it, and the game still clearly has a lot of potential there. So that is my review of Dead by Daylight. What are your thoughts on this video game? Let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. I know this video has been a bit of a long one, but if you enjoyed it, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you are new here, please make sure to go ahead and click on that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope to see you in my next video.